The lights in the classroom were humming, casting a cold glow over the rows of desks. Outside, the world was swallowed in pitch black. It was 9 at night, the final stretch of evening self-study for us high school seniors. Only 40 minutes left until we could go home. I snapped my eyes open, my heart hammering against my ribs. I looked around, my mind a blur of confusion. For a moment, I just sat there, frozen. Then the realization hit me like a physical blow. I had actually been reborn. I remembered everything. I had lived through 5 years of the ghostly apocalypse. It was a world turned into a living purgatory, where supernatural entities roamed the streets. In those hellish scenarios, a single broken rule meant a gruesome death. If you were lucky, you only lost a limb. If you weren't, you became food for the things lurking in the dark. To survive back then, you needed a contract with a ghost, a powerful cursed tool, or incredible wit. But most of all, you needed Ming coins. Not the fake paper money people burn for the dead, but the real currency of the underworld. Obtaining it was nearly impossible, but with enough of it, even a ghost king would kneel at your feet. In my past life, I had survived 5 years by sheer luck. Near the end, I found the Ming Bank. Rumors said it held trillions in Ming currency, enough to turn the apocalypse into a private paradise. I was desperate, driven mad by the constant terror. I decided to rob it. I had a spatial ring, one of the rarest items in existence, capable of holding an infinite amount of treasure. But the moment I broke in, I triggered the bank's traps. Hellfire erupted, and a ghost king rose to devour me. With nowhere to run, I let out a roar and used my ring to swallow the entire bank whole. The fire consumed me seconds later. As I died, I laughed at the irony. I was the richest man in the world, and I hadn't spent a single cent. I reached down and touched my finger. My breath hitched. The ring was there. I focused my mind and felt a surge of pure ecstasy. Not only was the ring with me, but the Ming Bank was still inside it. Trillions of coins were at my fingertips. I looked at the digital clock on the classroom wall. June. The apocalypse had started a month ago, in May. I took 5 minutes to force my racing heart to slow down. Everything looked normal. My classmates were whispering, my teacher was grading papers, and the banners cheering us on for our exams still hung on the walls. It made sense. In the first few months, the impact was small. Most people hadn't been touched by the horror yet. The world was trying to pretend everything was fine. But I knew better. The apocalypse started with a few individuals being dragged into ghostly scenarios to complete tasks. It grew like a cancer. Eventually, entire cities would be pulled into these death traps. In 2 years, the world as we knew it would be gone. This was the calm before the storm. In 1 month, order would collapse entirely. I needed to move fast. With this much money, I could buy up ghostly territories and hire powerful entities as bodyguards. I had the wealth, but I needed to build my strength before the chaos peaked. I looked around the room. If you looked closely, the cracks were already showing. My classmates weren't studying. They were huddled together, faces pale, whispering about the rumors they'd heard. They were terrified, but they were still clinging to the hope that the government would fix it. Suddenly, a piercing scream shattered the silence. A girl in the front row was staring at her desk, her finger trembling. A blood-red slip of paper had appeared out of thin air. It read, "Ghostly task, midnight canteen." 2 other students gasped as identical slips appeared on their desks. Being chosen meant you had to go. It meant you were likely going to die. I looked down at my own desk. My heart didn't race this time. There, resting on the wood, was a blood-red slip of my own. Ghostly task, midnight canteen. I wasn't surprised. In my past life, I had received this exact ghostly task at this very moment. While the others were paralyzed with fear, I felt something different. A spark of excitement flickered in my chest. I looked at the blood-red slip of paper. It was titled, Chapter 2, Midnight Canteen. The description was vivid and gruesome. It spoke of a canteen on campus that only opened at midnight. When the clock struck 12, the scent of blood would drift from the kitchen. Red dishes would be laid out on tables under the flicker of dim candlelight, waiting for a crowd of strange guests. You are a waiter at the midnight canteen, the paper read. Arrive at the school canteen before midnight. As a qualified waiter, being late is an unforgivable offense. I checked the time. It was 9:30 p.m. I had 2.5 hours. and the walk to the canteen only took 10 minutes. I had plenty of time. While I remained calm, the classroom erupted into chaos. For the past 2 weeks, rumors of these tasks had been circulating, but seeing it happen in person was different. My classmates were panicking. "Oh my God, it's real," someone screamed. "What do we do?" "Go get the teacher." "What's the point?" another replied, his voice trembling. "The teacher is sitting right there. He can't do anything. They're on their own. Can't they just skip it?" "I want to go home," a girl sobbed. A boy nearby scoffed, his face pale. "Skip it. Do you want to die faster?" A guy in my apartment complex got a task 2 days ago and refused to go. When the timer hit 0, a red line appeared around his waist. He split right in half. They say he struggled for 10 minutes before he finally died. The air in the room grew heavy with pity and dread. My desk mate glanced at me, his eyes filled with a mix of relief that it wasn't him and fear that my bad luck might be contagious. He quietly slid his chair away from me. I didn't care. I'd seen it all before. This was human nature. People think they can watch the house burn from across the street and stay safe, but they don't realize the fire is coming for them too. I knew for a fact that this desk mate would receive his own task in 2 weeks. He wouldn't survive it. He'd be torn to pieces by a vengeful spirit. The school bell rang. Students grabbed their bags and bolted, desperate to get away before the canteen found them. One by one, the lights in the building went out until only our classroom remained lit. The chosen students huddled together. They were all girls from my class, which wasn't surprising since I was in a liberal arts track. They were shivering, clutching their red slips, and 2 of them were already weeping quietly. I stood apart from them. 5 years in the apocalypse had hardened my heart. I had seen horrors they couldn't imagine. Besides, I had 1,000,000,000,000 ghost coins in my pocket and the memories of completing this task once before. I wasn't afraid. In fact, I was planning. If I remembered correctly, the Midnight Canteen was a massive opportunity. It had huge growth potential. Later in the apocalypse, it would hire high-level ghost chefs and become a world-renowned hotel. Powerful entities would travel miles just for a meal, often acting as muscle for the establishment just to get a table. If I wanted to dominate this new world, I would start by buying this canteen. We headed to the playground opposite the canteen to wait. The building was dark and silent. As the clock struck 12, 3 heavy chimes echoed through the air. Suddenly, flickers of candlelight appeared inside the windows. Shadows flitted across the glass, and the thick, metallic scent of blood drifted through the front doors. "Welcome, young waiters, to the Midnight Canteen." A figure stepped out of the darkness. It was the manager, a female ghost in a sharp red uniform and a fitted skirt. If you ignored the streaks of blood staining the corners of her mouth, she would have been beautiful. She scanned us, her eyes pausing on me. In a group of sobbing, shaking teenagers, my calm expression made me stick out like a sore thumb. She seemed surprised by my composure. "Work begins now," she said coldly. "I am the manager. To ensure things go smoothly, you must follow the rules. First, my orders are absolute. You will execute them without question. Second, the people coming here are guests. You must be polite. No matter what a guest demands, you must satisfy them unconditionally. Even I must obey this rule. Third, your shift is 2 hours. You cannot leave, and you must not damage anything, or you will be punished." She waved us inside. The smell of blood became overwhelming. In the dim light, I saw several rotting ghouls carrying plates of raw, red meat between the kitchen and the dining area. "You have 3 minutes to change," the manager said, pointing to a door labeled locker room. I didn't hesitate. I pushed the door open and walked in first. The others shared terrified glances before scurrying in behind me. The room smelled of rot, and the uniforms hanging on the wall were splattered with old blood. Because I was first, I grabbed the cleanest one available. The others had to settle for whatever was left. We changed quickly, and a minute later, we stood before the manager in our new attire. She nodded, her eyes glinting in the dark. Zhao Mengmeng lunged forward, thrusting her 10 Ming coins toward the manager. She screamed at the top of her lungs, her voice cracking with desperation. She told the manager she had money and that she would pay for the broken plate. She handed the coins over quickly, as if terrified the manager might change her mind. When the manager took the money and nodded, Zhao Mengmeng let out a long, shaky breath. She actually thought she had saved herself. I shook my head. I knew better. Zhao Mingming had just walked right past her last chance at survival. She was a dead woman walking. Sure enough, the manager's expression soured again. Her voice turned cold and biting. She told Zhao Mingming that 10 Ming coins weren't enough. The plate cost 20. Since the girl couldn't cover the debt, the manager announced she would be taking half of Zhao Mingming's body as payment instead. Zhao Mingming's eyes nearly bulged out of her head. Terror and pure despair washed over her. She hadn't realized the price would be so high. It was obvious now. The ghoul at the table was playing with her. It wanted her dead. Zhao Mingming collapsed. A puddle of steaming liquid spread beneath her on the floor. She had literally been scared senseless. The ghoul at the table clapped its hands in delight. It watched the scene with hungry eyes, clearly loving the transition from hope to absolute horror. The other students looked pale. They finally saw the trap. The restaurant was rigged to favor the guests, even when those guests were intentionally breaking things to get us killed. They felt the crushing weight of a dead end. I didn't feel that pressure. My confidence didn't just come from the coins in my pocket. It came from knowing the core law of this twisted world. Every mission has a way out. Sometimes, survival is hidden right inside the rules. And I, Chun Mo, had already figured out the secret to the midnight canteen. The ghoul licked its lips, looking unsatisfied. Watching one person break wasn't enough. It wanted more. Suddenly, it pointed at me. It pulled 10 Ming coins from its pocket and shoved them into my hand. It told me it was a tip. The others gasped. They knew what was coming. I was the next target. Zhao Mingming, still shivering on the floor, glared at me with pure spite. She was going to die, and seeing me go down with her gave her a sick sense of revenge. She probably thought it was my turn to suffer because I hadn't stepped in to save her. The ghoul picked up another plate and smashed it onto the floor. Clang! Shards flew everywhere. It pointed at the mess and told the manager that I, the waiter, should pay for it. The unfairness of it all was too much for one girl to handle. Yi Chuxue, our class president, finally snapped. She shouted that it wasn't fair, that the ghoul had broken the plate, not me. I glanced at her. I knew why she was doing it. Part of it was her sense of justice, but the other part was fear. She knew if I died, she was next. I used to see people like her all the time back in the early days of the apocalypse. A year later, they were all gone. People with a sense of justice are usually the first to die. The manager didn't care about the argument. She looked at me and reminded me that a waiter must satisfy a guest's every whim. If the guest wanted me to pay, I had to pay. She expected me to beg or scream. Instead, I just nodded calmly. I told her I had 10 Ming coins. She sneered, reminding me that 10 wasn't enough for the plate. I know, I said slowly. But I never said I was paying for the plate. The others looked at me like I'd lost my mind. They thought I was openly defying the manager. The manager's mouth began to leak fresh, crimson blood. She looked ready to tear me into pieces. She told me if I didn't pay, I'd die. I didn't flinch. I actually flashed her a bright, wide smile. I waved the 10 Ming coins in the air and looked her right in the eye. Bring me a menu, I said. I'd like to order a dish and try the food. The other girls were baffled. They probably thought I had snapped under the pressure. Who orders a meal while a monster is trying to eat them? But the manager's face shifted. The aggression vanished, replaced by a flicker of surprise and genuine caution. She realized I had found the loophole. I looked at her and told her that her little games weren't going to work on me.